Welcome to the show on account of Mental Health Month, is what they call it, kind of just rolling out. I actually wanted to focus on mental health this morning on the show. It's a topic that's come up very, very often. When it comes to the aspect of mental health, that stigma still exists. As Indians, sometimes we feel shy to talk about mental health. Sometimes it's ingrained in us that we shouldn't be talking about it. Now, COVID has exacted a heavy mental health toll on the whole country. Here's a fun fact for you: more than 80% of mental health care in India happens outside institutions, right? Altruism and honestly, just kind of seva almost are hallmarks of Indian culture. But like I said, 80% happens outside these institutions. So to join me on the show to actually break down mental health this morning, I have two wonderful ladies. One of them's in Mumbai, one of them's all the way in Delhi, and it's really, really nice to speak to Vidhi Tamboli and Rhea. Forgive me if I get this last name wrong. Okay, Rhea, you can correct me. Sawhney, am I saying that right?
Sani. Sani.
Sani. Oh, wow. It's just like a fancy spelling for Sani. Okay, cool. Ria Sani as well. Guys, hi. Firstly, it's nice to see you both. How are you doing?
Great, great. Thank you so much for having us.
No, it's a pleasure.
Doing
And
well, Karen. Thank you for having us.
I have to tell you, when it comes to mental health, right, it's one that we all shy away from talking about. But what you guys have gone and done is build a platform that caters to it. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's just kind of focus on number one, where we are today as a country. Let's start with that when it comes to mental health. And number two, how are ordinary citizens dealing with mental health? And I'm referring to people who have not had experiences with mental health, even in their first circles before. Ria, would you like to start first with regards to where we are as a country?
Sure. So there is still a lot of stigma in a country like India, and amongst Indians in general across the globe, right? So what we see is people hesitating to firstly reach out, and even if they do gather the courage to reach out, a lot of people don't really follow through because they are afraid of their parents finding out. There is lack of awareness about mental health in general. People have financial constraints when it comes to seeking therapy. So there are a lot of barriers that we've noticed when it comes to the Indian population
Sure.
across the globe wanting to seek help.
Can I
So
ask you
that is
if
something that we've noticed.
Can I ask you if, this whole movement to online platforms, there's a little bit of comfort, right? You're behind a screen, you're not talking to people directly. Vidhi, does that become a little bit more comfortable for Indians out there?
100%. I think we've seen a big shift pre-COVID and post-COVID, if I have to put it that way, right? Because suddenly, first of all, therapy has been a stigma. Mental health, there's a lot of awareness about mental health. But the stigma, we would say, is more so around the access to therapy and getting therapy,
Sure.
right? There are people who are aware that I have a mental health concern or I am facing some level of anxiety, but at the same time, the problem doesn't come in over there. The problem comes in when they have to kind of address it and do something about it. But with online therapy coming in, a lot of those avenues have opened up. In tier one, we would say the avenues were a lot more open, but the online therapy option has opened up avenues for tier two, tier three cities as well. And that's exactly where we come in, where we're trying to reach out to people pan India, where anyone from anywhere can reach out and they don't have to worry about being in a small town. My psychologist will know who everyone is and none of that. So sitting at
Right.
home, I don't have to commute. I have a laptop in front of me and I have my own space and I directly jump into it. So it
Right.
provides a safer space in that manner.
You know, it's becoming more and more common to hear of a friend who has some issues with mental health. It's becoming more and more common to hear of an family member that has some mental health issues that they're dealing with themselves. But there are a lot of times where we forget to address the topic of mental health professionals as a community, right? There are so few of them. If you look at it in comparison to the population that we have in the country, there are so few of them. How can we make it easier for that community, number one? And what's that ratio at? If you have any loose idea right now, I'd love if you could shed some light on that. Vidhi, you'd like to start?
I think the ratio would somewhere, at least from past statistics, is 1 is to like 100,000 people. It's
Wow.
extremely low. The other concern is that this also includes psychologists, psychiatrists. The lines are extremely blurry, right? For someone to be a clinical psychologist and then a counseling psychologist, and it makes it confusing not only for the professionals but also for clients, right? Who is the right person that I need to go to? So it's the ratio is extremely large. There are a lot of upcoming mental health professionals who are coming up, but access, finding the right clients would be a concern. So the mood space also works in that space where we're supporting a lot of therapists who are coming in, and again they could be coming in from a tier 2 and tier 3 city, and I keep focusing on that because that is the space where they're not able to find the right avenue to work, nor are they able to find the right avenue to get the right clients because of the stigma. So again, we're able to kind of cater to all of them and say that, hey, you have a space where you can come in and see clients. And at the same time, they're able to do the work that they can. But qualifications are extremely important, right? And in India, currently, there is no structure for a licensing policy, that there's no license that you need to become a counselor. So the avenue kind of affects a lot of counselors because people come in being extremely skeptical as to who is the right person that I should be going to. And hence, vetting is extremely important on our end. But I think it's a benefit to the client as well as the therapist who's coming in.
A lot of times you get that whole thing where people say that, go by reference. People, ask for references and then they go by references as well. You focused on space, the space that you're trying to provide for mental health professionals. I want to kind of, on a lighter note, ask Rhea, does Vidhi give you any space, or like, is she like, in this entire thing, or how is it to kind of deal with Vidhi? Let's do that.
So Vidhi is actually a psychologist by profession.
Right.
And my background is more in the marketing field. So for me, it's like a learning experience every day to like learn new terms in the psychology field and understand more about the mental health space in general. So
it's usually the other way around. You're giving her space rather than she giving you space.
No, it's very interesting, because obviously when you're running a startup, you have issues that come up on a day-to-day basis, and there are frustrations, there are highs and lows. So whenever I'm like venting out to Vidhi, oh my God, this happened, or so and so has not completed the task that they were assigned, or any of those kind of things, she'll always hear me out very patiently and like play the psychologist role when we're working together. So it just varies on a day-to-day basis, but it's very interesting working with a psychologist.
That's nice. Awesome. Vidhi, you just got huge compliments there, man. Like, it's like she planned on doing this. Now she's going to extract something from you very soon. Be careful. Listen, I want to kind of figure out the both of you, your individual experiences with mental health and why you decided. I mean, you could have done anything individually with your lives, but also what kind of motivates two young women to go into the space of building an online platform that deals with exactly this? I find that fascinating. I find that story super, super cool. And I'm sure you both have either had your experiences with mental health, or maybe it just was like, hey, I feel passionately about this and I want this to kind of take off. I'll start with Rhea first. Rhea, why did you decide to do this? It's kind of more simple from Vidhi's perspective because, like you said, she's a psychologist herself. But I'd love to know from you, Rhea, first.
Sure. So this is slightly a long story, so feel free to cut out whatever you don't think is relevant. But Vidhi and I know each other since 2007. We went to boarding school together, and then we attended university together in the US. And I think right after graduation, as an international student trying to live abroad and like work abroad, there were lots of times that I personally felt like I could have used a therapist.
Sure.
Just transitioning into adulting was a very difficult period for me. It was filled with a lot of stress. Moving to different states, trying to find a job, getting used to work culture, and just adulting in general was a really tough phase of life. And then obviously there were relationships in between, where having someone to talk to about all my concerns would have really helped me at that point. And
Sure.
I also was in a friend group where I would be the person who would be listening to a lot of my friends' concerns while they would vent out, and I would be giving them advice that you should do this or not do this. And therapy was honestly something that just never crossed my mind as an option, because growing up, we were always taught to be like, be successful, be physically fit, but being mentally fit was not something that was ever
So
taught to
true.
us growing up. And
So
it was
true.
never spoken about at home either. It was just like, yeah, there are highs and lows of life and you deal with it, right? And nobody really wanted to talk about what you're really going through or what you're really feeling.
Mm.
And it was like, even when you talk to parents when you're sitting in another country, um, you don't really want to bog them down with the day to day like difficulties that you're going
Yeah.
through. So you tell them everything's fine, everything's okay, and you move on, right? So I think there were lots of periods of my life where I feel like I needed therapy, but I didn't really have access to it. And then in the year 2000, like 17 or 18, I actually tried looking for a therapist, but I like I said, I was in the US. It was extremely expensive. Getting a session there was like $200 for an hour. I had to wait 6 months to get access to a
Oh, that's
therapist.
crazy. Are you serious? 6 months? Wow.
Yeah, there was like no availability.
Man.
So the options were very limited, and um, I wanted someone who was from an Indian background, because I wanted them to understand the
And
cultural.
relate. Yeah,
Uh,
I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I just wanted someone with an Indian background, and that was harder to find. And then I met Vidhi in the year 2019 at a friend's wedding. We had like a reunion and we started talking about doing something together. And that's when we started talking about, since she was already in this field, and taking sessions with individual clients. And I had heard of this platform, of this concept in the US where you could do online therapy, but I didn't really
Sure.
see anything like it in a country like India. And I thought that it would do extremely well
Mm.
in our country, because people have so much stigma. They are afraid of going to a therapist's office or being seen at a therapist's office. So having an online space where people can just hop on a call, get in touch with a therapist, do a FaceTime call, do a WhatsApp call, and from the comfort of their own home would be really helpful. So,
Right.
we started having these discussions, and that's where the whole concept of the mood space
Awesome.
began. And
Look where you are
it's
today.
been 2.5 years. Yeah, it's been 2.5 years now. And
Awesome.
yeah, I let Vidhi do more of the talking.
Vidhi, personally for you, your experiences as a psychologist and doing work in this line, what kind of pushed you into kind of doing something like this?
Sure. I think the story is similar to what Rhea has been mentioning, right? That's not something that we spoke about at home. Speaking about emotional and mental health was not something that was done at all, right? Not in your friend circle, not in your family. And when we went to Singapore, we had a career counselor, right? And your teachers are kind of doing the job of speaking to you, talking to you about this, and realizing that if you don't submit an assignment, there is someone who could also come to you and ask you that, is there something else that's going on? It may not necessarily be about the assignment. And that's when the idea kicked in, right? And that's from a personal experience that I was lagging in doing my assignments, doing a lot of
Sure.
work. The question wasn't about the assignment. The question was, what else is going on? Is everything else okay
Right.
in your life, right? And that's when the focus on mental health came in. Anyway, so then moved on to college, and again, like Ria mentioned, nothing that we spoke about. When you call home, it's the same conversations again. And I actually started my degree by doing my bachelor's in economics, and in my third year, I started realizing that, okay, I need to move on and do something more, right? The idea was always to create impact.
Yeah.
And for my soft spot for mental health started from that point, when the realization came in that there is so much more that we can do at an individual level and also at collectively, just at a global level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hence when I came, yeah.
Sorry, please go on, finish.
No, and hence when we started the conversations about this, the initial point was that how can we create impact, right? How can we go out, understand the stigma, understand the lack of understanding of that stigma, and at the same time, how do we make it more convenient and accessible? And
Yeah.
and that's how the
Really, I think it's a matter of accessibility, like you just said, and man, this had to be in much sooner. We're such a we're a country that was known, at least Bangalore, for example, known for IT, and we led the way in terms of that. But when it comes to moving these things online, we've taken a while. I'm glad we're finally here. The platform's called The Mood Space. You can find them on themoodspace.com. That's their website. Vidhi, Rhea, thank you so much to both you lovely ladies. And it's been really cool to get to know your side of the story. And I'm wishing you all the very best. May you guys continue to kind of go on to changing lives of, people who really, really need that little bit of help, especially in these pandemic times.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.